Hello, всем привет! In this video you will find out how Russia celebrates Dien Победы, that is the day of victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. I'm going to share with you my impression of how this day is celebrated here in St. Petersburg and what the general vibe is. Поехали! So the 9th of May is always accompanied by a military parade, especially in Moscow. In St. Petersburg, there are small events all over the city. This ensemble played at the mall close to my home here in St. Petersburg. It is generally a quiet and emotional holiday. So you won't find people in the street shouting, "Hooray, we won the war 80 years ago," or something like "Россия." Something like that doesn't happen in this holiday. Of course, people do feel glad about the fact that they won the war 80 years ago, but it is much more about thinking of the incredible losses that they had to bring in World War II. People walk around with images of their grandfathers and great-grandfathers who have served and often died in World War II. This is called the Immortal Regiment. I don't know if you know this, but the Soviet Union has had enormous losses in World War II. Estimates range from 23 to 29 million deaths of Soviet citizens. The Soviet Union has lost more people than any other nation in World War II, about 60 times more than the United States, for example. This massive loss has shaped Russian memory, identity, and cultural narratives around the war, known here as Великая Отечественная война, so the Great Patriotic War. So here many people don't understand how in the West this day is not so important. Why on this day there are no huge demonstrations in Europe. And in conversations with Westerners, they often get into arguments when they realize that they think that the US or Britain had the biggest part in beating the Nazis. To them, this is really like a slap in the face after having lost 23 to 29 million people in the war. From a Russian point of view, the US just joined the war close to the end when it was already becoming clear that the Nazis were going to lose, because the Soviet Union had already done all the hard work. It is actually interesting to see how the perception of who played the biggest role in beating the Nazis in World War II differs internationally. Every country kind of has their own truth and sees themselves as the winners of World War II, which of course is kind of a distorted view of history. Definitely comment in the comments below who you think had the biggest part in winning against fascism in World War II. And please also say where you're from so that we have some context, and maybe say also how people in your country see this. It will be very, very interesting. So almost every family in Russia has been directly affected by World War II, and literally millions of people take to the streets all over Russia on this day to commemorate their ancestors and their service to the country. The general vibe is sad, melancholic, and generally that war is bad and should not happen. I didn't see any pro-war symbols or anything like that all day, except for this guy here with the sad on his t-shirt. I think in general people didn't want to mix this remembrance of World War II with the current situation in Ukraine. The people with whom I talked mostly said that the situation then was a completely different one, and that they wouldn't want to compare the heroes from then with the situation now. So it's a deeply emotional day, mixing mourning with pride and patriotism. For many families, it's the most important day of the year, even more important than the New Year. I had the chance to talk to some people about what the 9th of May meant to them. Here's what they had to say.
День Победы – это в первую очередь день памяти, благодарность, да, предкам, которые нас защитили, благодаря которым они свою, самое дорогое, что у них были, за нас.
And then I also asked them about how they thought the war, World War II, compared to the war that Russia is fighting today in Ukraine. Here's what they had to say.
Нет, конечно, это вообще
Совершенно другое.
совершенно другое. Это разные вещи.
Да.
Воевали за жизнь и правду, а сейчас сложно сказать, за что воюют. Я не могу сказать, что мы делаем что-то правильное. Но никого в России не спрашивали, хотим мы ли этой войны.
Да.
Украинцы — это родной нам народ. Мы
Да.
братья. У нас много родственников, знакомых, друзей из Украины.
Как считают ваши друзья, это более-менее то же самое или...
У меня по-разному. У меня
Все
так,
по-разному.
все мои друзья придерживаются моей точки зрения.
Ну, большинство, конечно, да, мне кажется.
Да.
Поддерживают войну без лиц.
While I was conducting this interview, a lady in the background, you can see her, listened, and then afterwards she approached me and said that the girls just didn't know history and so on. And of course I also did an interview with her, and here's what she had to say.
Нет, не мнение большинства, во-первых. Я думаю, что девочки просто на самом деле плохо знают историю. Плохо знают историю Украины, плохо знают историю бандеровцев. В моем практически все считают, что специальную военную операцию нужно было начинать раньше.
So it is still a very touchy subject, of course, with a huge range of different opinions depending on who you ask. What is very interesting, though, is that many people kind of are in their bubble, right? And they think that most of the people in Russia share their opinion. I do think that a lot of younger people are more against war in general than older people. The older people are, the more they think that war is somehow acceptable. I see this everywhere in the world, not just in Russia, also in the West. So of course people usually they talk to people that are similar to them in age or in world views. Then you might think that most people or almost all people have your opinion when it really isn't the case actually. Now, but from this you can see that it's actually quite hard to say exactly how many percentage of people have which opinion. It really depends on who you ask. But realistically, I would say that the second lady's opinion is probably more popular. I'm sure that Putin still has a majority, I would say at least 70%. Definitely nobody's enthusiastic about the war, but they kind of think that they have to sit it out, and they are willing to do that. So that's the 9th of May in Russia. A huge event, the biggest holiday in the year, a mix of sadness and melancholy paired with gratitude and pride for their ancestors. Don't forget to hit the like button and follow this channel if you think that this kind of content is interesting, and I'll see you in the next video.